In the next few minutes, I'm going to give you 5 things I wish somebody would have told me before I started my business. No theory, no fluff. Real things that came from real mistakes, real clients, real moments where I literally had to learn the hard way. And I'm going to unpack all these things so you don't have to go through. Here's what nobody tells you. Most entrepreneurs don't fail because they lack hustle. They fail because they are missing information, the right information. And by the time they figure it out, it already cost them. Money they ain't have to lose, the time they can't get back, opportunities that pass because they ain't know what they didn't know. Now, I get it, right? You work hard, you show up every day, but something still feels off, right? The money ain't moving the way it should. You busy, but you not growing. You serving people, but you ain't sure it's the right people. You listening to everybody online, and somehow you still feel more confused than you were when you started. Does that sound familiar? Yep, I was there too. But stay with me because I'm going to break down the 5 things that will completely change how you think about building a business that actually pays you. I'm talking about things that changed my firm, changed my thinking, and now it has totally changed my life. And number 3, that one might save your identity. Let's get to it. Okay, so the first thing is, I need you to understand this. Bookkeeping is way more important than you think. When I started my business, I wasn't tracking everything that I should. Yeah, I was tracking the basics, but there's more to bookkeeping than just the P&L. So yeah, I knew money was coming in and going out, but as long as I had more coming in than going out, I thought I was good. But no, I wasn't. I was guessing. And in business, guessing will eventually cost you everything. And honestly, I get it. Bookkeeping sounds like something you do when you get big enough, like it's a later problem. Right now, you're focused on getting customers. You're delivering the work. You're keeping the lights on. So the last thing that you want to do is sit down and go through all your bank transactions and receipts. So you push it off. You tell yourself that you'll catch up. Weeks turn into months, months turn into a year, and before you know it, you got a shoebox and some folders full of receipts, and you got no idea what your actual numbers are. And tax season will hit you like a freight train. All righty, so here's my story. Let me tell it to you. I started my business in 2011 with $300 in a used computer off of eBay while I was in grad school. I wasn't even trying to start my own firm, y'all. I was just looking to get some hours of experience so I could transition into a corporate career. And by the time I was an engineer by training, but I was also at the same time studying accounting. So numbers were supposed to be my thing, but business numbers, those were different. Nobody taught me how to track service-based businesses. Nobody showed me how to look at my own financials and make decisions from them. Like, I remember the first time I actually sat down and looked at what I had tracked. And, to be honest, what I hadn't tracked, I didn't even recognize in my own business. Like, I couldn't even tell you which service was the most profitable. I couldn't tell you which clients were costing me more than what they were paying me. I couldn't tell you what months were slow and which ones were strong. I was out here flying blind, and I was flying blind in the dark. The wake-up call came from me in 2013 when my wife told me that she wanted to come home and help me with the business full time. My business was doing great from a P&L standpoint. I was profitable. I was making money. I didn't have a whole lot of expenses, so I had profit. But here's the thing. I couldn't figure it out in my head why my business bank account could never stay over a certain balance. And when I would have the conversation with my wife about this thing, the conversation was embarrassing because I was the one that was supposed to know this stuff. It wasn't because of the profits, but what it revealed basically how I was running my business. I was reactive to everything. I had no visibility. And without visibility, you can't lead. So the moment I got serious about bookkeeping, I got consistent. I did it monthly. I characterized everything. I reconciled everything. And then I started running KPI reports to start evaluating other little intricacies about the business. And when I did that, everything changed. I could see patterns I had never seen before. I could see certain amounts that were like predictably slow. And I started preparing for those things instead of just panicking when they hit. I could also see which services had like the highest margins. And what I did is it caused me to make decisions and say, you know what? I need to double down on that. I stopped guessing and I started leading. And I started leading with my numbers. It made a whole different feeling happen because I was leading with actual facts instead of leading with hope, right? So here's the truth. You can't measure what you don't track. And what you can't measure, you can't improve. Bookkeeping ain't just an accounting function. It's a vision function. It shows you where you've been so you can plan where you're going. It gives you the data to make real decisions, not emotional ones, not fear-based ones, real ones. So my advice to you, get your books in order. Not at the end of the year when it's time for you to go to the tax person. Not when the tax season comes. Get that stuff in order now. Get it in order today. Because the entrepreneur who knows their numbers right now always has the advantage over the ones who don't. Okay, so reason number 2, you don't got to serve everybody. Now, in the beginning, early on, I said yes to everybody. If you had $1 in a problem, I was your guy. It didn't matter what kind of problem. It didn't matter if it was in my lane. It didn't matter if I was even doing something that I enjoyed doing or not. If you needed it, I said yes. It got so bad where I had a bookkeeping firm and I had a tax firm, but I was out here doing business plans. I was out here doing credit repair. I hate credit repair. I hate doing business plans. But here's the thing. And when I was doing all that, I thought I was growing. But what I was actually doing was building chaos instead of like actually doing business. Now, nobody tells you this stuff when you start. And I get it. You hungry. You need revenue, you got bills, you got overhead, you got people counting on you. So you take what comes. I get it. I've been there. But that's what makes, it makes complete sense in the beginning. I'm not telling you to be picky when you're starting from zero, but here's the problem. If you never get intentional about who you're for, you end up exhausted, underpaid, and you stuck with clients who were never meant to be yours in the first place. And the worst part, you built that. You said yes to it. So guess what? You got to deal with it. So now, I had a client early in my business. This person was a good person, and genuinely, they were just completely wrong for what I was building, right? Every interaction was a drain. Every conversation was a negotiation about my scope of work, my price. It was always about something. And then I had to constantly re-explain everything that really, really, really ticked me off. It was as if the meetings I had with this person never happened because they just weren't paying attention. Every email I had to send took twice as long to write because I always had to be careful about how I said things. Every meeting ended up with me feeling like I had lost something, even though I thought I had won, right? But here's the thing. I kept this person for years. I kept them for way too long, longer than I should have because I told myself I needed the revenue. But here's what I didn't calculate. The cost of that relationship wasn't just time. It was mental bandwidth. It was energy I could have spent building something better. It was the headspace that I ain't have because this one client was always occupying it. I mean, every time I turned around, it was getting on my nerves. That one wrong fit client cost me more than they ever paid me. And when I finally made the decision to part ways, I did it professionally. I did it respectfully. I felt like it was something I didn't expect, right? I could breathe again. And that breathing room, that is where growth lives. Now, after that, I decided to make a shift. And that shift happened when I stopped looking for customers and started seeking to solve like specific problems for specific people. When I got clear on the question I was answering, who has this problem? What do they need? Am I the right person to solve it? Then guess what started to happen? The right people started to find me. I stopped chasing and started attracting. And attraction is something completely different. It's a whole different business model than chasing. Listen, you're not for everybody. And please understand that this is not a limitation. It is a superpower. The clearer you are about who you serve and what problem you solve, the less you have to chase and the more you start to attract. Your marketing gets sharper. Your offers get better. The clients will respect you more because they chose you specifically And it wasn't because you were available, right? It was because you got the solution to their problem and the answer to their prayer, right? So stop trying to market to everybody. Start speaking directly to somebody. One person, one problem, one clear solution. That is where business starts to feel like it was made for you because you built it that way. Now, moving on to point number 3, reason number 3. Be careful of the online gurus. You need to know your identity. This one is the most personal thing I'm going to say to you today, right? When I started building my business, I literally got caught up consuming everybody else's content. I mean, I was going down a rabbit hole looking at their stuff. Everybody had a framework. Everybody had a method. Everybody had the 7 steps and the 12 secrets and the one thing that you're missing. And slowly, without even realizing it, I started building my business based on what all these people had told me it should look like instead of what God made it to be. And look, I ain't telling you not to learn. You definitely need to be a student. You need to learn everything that you can. Shucks, I'm still learning. But there is a massive difference between gaining knowledge and losing yourself. And when you're in this entrepreneurial space, that line gets crossed faster than you think, right? You start to adjust your language to sound like somebody else. You start to offer what they offer because you think, okay, well, it's working for them, it should work for me. You start to second guess your own instincts because somebody with a whole bigger following, a nicer studio, and a more polished brand told you that you're doing it wrong. And before long, you don't start to sound like you anymore. You don't even think like you anymore. And the people that were supposed to find you, the ones that are specifically built to serve you, they can't find you because you over there playing in somebody else's playground. But here's the thing about being in somebody else's yard and their playground. You bring home their fleas. You bring home their problems. You bring home their dirt. And you tracking all that in your house. So guess what? I had to stop. Completely stop. I had to step back from the content. I had to step back from all the courses. I had to step back from the communities. And I asked myself a very hard question. Whose voice am I building with? Because when I got honest, the answer wasn't mine. I had absorbed all these frameworks. I had all these personalities in my head and all these opinions about what a successful business should look like that I couldn't even hear my own voice anymore. And the thing is, my voice is the whole product. My story is the whole point. But if I'm just echoing somebody else, then what am I offering, right? So guess what I did? I unfollowed and shut off a whole lot of people. Not because they were bad people. I just had to get back to my core. And it wasn't until I got back to my core, my faith, my story, what I actually believe about business and money and purpose, then it started to click, right? The road method that I teach didn't come from no guru. The wealth triangle that I teach didn't come from no course. Built to Pay You, this whole book didn't come from me copying somebody else's model. All of it came from me getting quiet enough, getting still enough to hear what was already inside of me, what God had already put there, right? What God put there. And when I started building from that place, from identity instead of imitation, everything got clear. The right clients started showing up. The right opportunities started aligning because I was finally able to be specific about who I was instead of being general about what I could offer. So I want you to listen to me. Your identity is your competitive advantage. Nobody can outdo you, right? Because you got to know who you're called to first. You got to do the work, the internal work, to get clear on what you believe, what you stand for, what makes your perspective different from everybody else in this space. You got to protect that thing. You got to guard it. Don't let the noise of the internet just rewrite that. So yes, be a student. Be a student who keeps their own identity intact. Learn the frameworks, but filter it to make your story. Make your own framework by taking what applies and leave what don't, right? Because the market ain't waiting on another version of a guru that you've been following. They're waiting for you, the real you, the specific, clear, unapologetic version of you, even if you ain't got it all together, right? Know your identity before the internet tries to give you one. Now, thing number 4, cash flow is more important than profit. Yes, I can't tell y'all how many business owners I've sat across from. These were smart people, hardworking people, people who have been in business for years. These people look profitable on paper, but they couldn't pay their bills. Y'all, that's not a small problem. That is a crisis. And it blindsides people every day, every single day, because nobody taught them the difference between profit and cash flow. Here's why it happens. Everything we're taught about business success is built around profit. Revenue minus expenses. If the number is positive, we're winning. And that feels logical. But here's the thing. Profit only lives on a spreadsheet. Cash flow lives in real life. And in real life, timing matters. When money comes in, yes, it matters. When money goes out, yes, it matters. The gap between when you earn it and when you actually have it, that gap is where businesses go broke. Not because they weren't profitable. It was because they ran out of cash before the profit actually showed up. Now, I've had this same conversation more times than I can count. A business owner comes in, they slide their P&L across the table, and yeah, the paper looks fine. It might even look good. Revenue's up, expenses are managed, profit is there on paper. But then I actually see the bank statement, and then the bank account tells me a whole different story. Ain't nothing there, or barely anything. And then they look at me like I'm supposed to explain how that's possible, how they can be profitable and broke at the same time. Okay, I can actually explain that. Here's how that happened. They invoiced, but didn't collect, right? The money was earned in October, but didn't hit the account until December. But guess what? Your bills were due in November. They paid their quarterly expenses up front, but the revenue didn't come in until the next month. They grew fast. They hired early, and the payroll went out before the new client came in. Every single one of those things is a cash flow problem, not a profit problem. And if you don't know the difference, you're going to keep thinking that you're fine right up until the moment that you're not. So when you start to manage cash flow, not just watching profit, you start to make decisions differently. You start thinking about timing. You start to think about your collections process. You start to think about the times when you invoice and when you follow up and how quickly you turn a delivered service into actual money and deposits in the bank. You start building what I call the rhythm of your money. And when you know the rhythm, you can plan, you can prepare, you can stop reacting and start leading, right? So listen, profit is the scoreboard, yes, and it is important, but cash flow is the oxygen. You can survive and still play the game with a bad score, but you can't survive without air. So know your cash position. Know when money is coming in and when it's going out. Know what that gap is and figure out how to manage it. Build your business around the flow, not just the finish line. Because the finish line don't matter if you run out of gas before you get there. Now, the last thing, point number 5. Systems will cause you to thrive, not just survive. For the first few years of my business, I was the system. Everything lived in my head, every process, every client preference, every password, every deadline, every follow-up that needed to happen. I was the filing cabinet. I was the calendar. I was the operations manual. I was the customer service department. All of it was me. Yeah, this guy right here. Even the name of the business had me in it, Mac Reed and Associates. But here's the problem with that. That means the business can only move as fast as I move, which means I hit a ceiling pretty fast. And that ceiling wasn't the market. That ceiling was me. Now, I understand why entrepreneurs do this. I did it. You're talented. You're capable. You've built something from nothing, and you know how to do it better than anyone else. So it feels faster and easier to just do it yourself. And at first it is. But I'm here to tell you that logic got an expiration date, because eventually you're going to get sick. And the reason why I know that is because that happened to me several times over the last few years, right? Or you may want to take a vacation, or you may want to bring someone else on to help, and you realize that you can't even explain what you do because you've never written it down. You can't delegate because there's nothing to hand off. You can't scale because you're the only one who knows how all of this stuff works. You didn't build a business, you just built a job. And you're not the owner, you're just the employee. You're the one who never gets a chance to take a day off at this point, right? So now I got my team and we're documenting things. And the moment we started documenting, really documenting how things actually worked in my practice, something shifted I didn't expect. It wasn't just efficiency, right? It was clarity. Because when you write down how something works, you have to actually understand it. And you get to see it from an outside perspective now. And when we started doing that, we started to see our business differently. We could see where things were breaking down. We could see where we were repeating the same work over and over and over that we literally could have just fixed by putting out some templates. Then I started to see where clients were getting inconsistent experiences because there's a process now. And that process was me improvising every time. I could see what was worth keeping and what was just habit. And then I could fix it. And then I could hand things off. I now can bring on team members and actually train them. I could take a day or two off and know the business didn't stop because I did. Systems just didn't make me more efficient. Systems made me more free. And freedom is the whole point of building your own business in the first place. A system don't have to be complicated. It don't have to be expensive software or a 15-step workflow. It just has to exist outside of your head. So write it down, document it, build it once, refine it over time, and run that thing forever. That is how a business stops being a hustle and starts becoming an asset. Something that works with you and eventually without you. That is what a system is. Systems are what separate entrepreneurs who survive from entrepreneurs who thrive. Survival means you make it through the month. Thriving means that you're building something that grows, something that scales, something that serves people at a high level every time. Not just when you have the energy to pull it off. If everything in your business depends on you being present, being energized, and being available every single day, then guess what? You ain't got a business. You got dependency. And dependencies are fragile. So build the systems, create the freedom. That's what businesses that are built to pay you actually looks like. So I'm going to bring it all together. 5 things. 5 things I wish I had known when I started this journey in 2011 with $300 and a dream and absolutely no idea what I was getting into. First thing is you got to track your numbers because you can't lead what you can't see. Next thing is you got to serve the right people because the wrong client will cost you more than they pay you. Then you got to guard your identity because the internet will try to tell you who to be and what you have to already know. Next thing after that, you got to manage your cash flow because profit on paper doesn't pay your bills. And then the last thing, which I would actually say the most important thing is this: build your systems because freedom ain't free if you're the only one who can run the machine. These 5 things would have changed everything for me if I'd have known about it earlier. But guess what? You know them now. And that means that you can move differently starting today. So if this helped you, and hopefully I believe it did, do me a favor. I want you to do 3 things to show a commitment to yourself. First, I want you to like and share this video because somebody you know needs to hear this content now more than ever. Then I want you to subscribe to this channel so you never miss the content that this can change, how your business pays you. And then finally, get a copy of this book. Click on the link in the description and let us get you started. So remember this: your business is designed to serve others, but it is built to pay you. And if your business ain't paying you, I encourage you and I expect to hear from you soon. Until next time, this is Coach Max signing off.